This program is presented by WGBH Boston in co-production with WHYY Wilmington, Philadelphia. Enterprise is co-produced with Learning Corporation of America.
The total amount bid is $31,683,591. The amount per acre, 5,500.62.
In an auction lasting less than 2 hours, this man will bid millions on offshore oil leases. If he guesses wrong, his employer, the Sun Company, could lose every penny and his job could be in danger. But if he guesses right, Sun could make billions. This week on Enterprise, California Crude.
I'm Eric Severide. This might be the last stop in the long journey for a barrel of oil pumped from beneath the ocean floor thousands of miles away. Oil companies like this one now consider offshore oil as their best opportunity for building reserves and profits. But they don't own the ocean, the federal government does. So the oil companies must bid against each other for federal leases, gambling billions of dollars in the hope that something's down there. Usually there isn't. The risks are high and the competition is fierce. This week on Enterprise, we'll look over the shoulder of one of the players, the Sun Company, as it studies a game and then decides exactly where to place its bets.
J.R. Ewing may be your idea of a Dallas oil man, but Fred Christian, 53, is the real thing. Born in Louisiana oil country and trained as a geologist, he's worked for the Sun Company for 30 years. Fred Christian may not look it, but he's a high-stakes gambler.
The oil business is probably the most thrilling thing that a person who isn't dealing with human life could do. We're matching wits with people some of us have known for 30 years. And believe me, the competition is tough.
As Sun's exploration manager, Christian is responsible for spending $50 million on offshore oil leases this year.
Our lifeblood is leases. Like Bear Bryant says, if you want to make a rabbit stew, first you got to get a rabbit. If you want to find production, you got to have a lease first.
In February, Christian is pushing his staff to get ready for a federal auction 4 months away. Sun will be bidding against other oil companies for the right to drill off the Southern California coast. But before Sun can bid, these geologists must decide where the oil is and then convince Christian.
One of the main things I'd like to ask you to do is to see if we can prolong the final technical meeting as late into May as we can. Hopefully, if you can get the upper management level meetings pushed to that last week in May, or the next to the last week in May, why, it gives us still a little more time.
This year, the big offshore auction will be held in Los Angeles. 164 tracts of ocean, each roughly 9 square miles, will be up for grabs. The Sun geologists have to narrow it down to the 24 most promising tracts.
Well, but see, if it's not a strike-slip fault, then you've got one hell of a normal fault. And I think it's a lot easier.
Well, have you got a good correlation between track 3 and track 11?
What you've got is the bottom, yeah.
Where you're satisfied?
But the Monterey, or below the Monterey, the bottom drops out in Texaco.
Using sound waves, the geologists probe the earth for rock formations that might hold oil. They test core samples, if they have them, and then they
guess. This could be
guess.
awfully significant, because you're liable to see all different kinds of maps depending on who's got the guts to draw this thing one way or the other. If we call it objectively, we're going to call it this way.
Are you going to call that a fault where it stops something?
Here?
Yeah.
Well, there's no question there's some sort of faulting in here, and there's some sort of faulting back in here. But it's tough to figure out which way these thrusts are moving. It takes somebody smarter than me to figure that out, I'm afraid.
I think that ridge is going to draw the fire, though.
Right now, that looks like the main part of the sail, really.
It sure as hell is, and bothers me. In the past, we've been shut out. We've done the work, we've put our value on it, we've gone out there and bid, and didn't get a single track. Now, that's the coldest feeling in the world. It's like an iron door shutting in your face. And you have to go call the boss and say, we blew it. We got shut out. At the same time, I've been there where we bid too much. We left a lot of money on the table. I'm not too sure. It wasn't harder to call and say we left a lot of money on the table.
The stakes are high both for Christian and the company. Geologists estimate that 1/3 of the nation's undiscovered oil reserves are offshore. The costs are high, too. One tract off Santa Barbara cost Sun about $100 million to develop, from buying the lease to building the platform. If all goes well, Sun will make a $30 million profit. But for every success like this one, there are 8 dry holes. These are the most important tracts up for auction. They stretch from the Santa Barbara Channel to Los Angeles. Dozens of tracts in the area have already been leased, including this one, for which Chevron and Phillips paid a record $333 million in 1981. The oil discovered here will double their domestic production. On the other hand, Mobil paid $95 million to lease this tract and has found nothing. With each tract, Christian and the geologists put themselves on the line.
We've had people quit because we didn't bid on the tract they wanted us to bid on. We've had geophysicists quit because we didn't go to the sale. A management decision for perfectly good reasons. I worked 2 years on this area. You mean you're not going to... And they just left.
Emotions may run high, but this is still a business. Using a computer, Dewey Baker tries to calculate the risks and potential rewards of leasing any given tract.
These computer programs are designed to add up all of those costs and weigh them against economic parameters to see if you are going to make a profit when you drill for this oil and gas. They're designed to add up the platform costs, the drilling costs, the cost of manpower and personnel, the delay of money. You have to give consideration if you stuck that money in the bank, you're going to draw 10, 12% interest. That might pay you more in the long run than putting your money in for an oil venture if it's 20 years later before you get your money out. It doesn't do any good to find a field that has 10,000 barrels of oil if it costs you $20 million to drill a well, and it can in the offshore.
Armed with Baker's preliminary figures, Fred Christian walks across the street to the office of his boss, Zeke Noble. Noble must approve Christian's budget for the sale.
Zeke is the final word. We recommend, we improvise, but when it comes down to spending the dollars, we have to go and get the okay to do it.
And this is the Sun log. This is an electric log analysis that's done through our technology group here. And just right off the bat, you can see that here on the left, you have the normal SP.
The sales being offered this year, this is the one that, in my opinion, has the most potential for the type operation Sun is looking for.
On this particular test, the lip is up at 7650 to 7750, which is up in this zone through here. And on this test, this well flowed 2,736 barrels of oil per day, and the gravity mysteriously went up. It went up to 18.8.
The big news of the meeting is a new oil discovery on a Sun tract bordering the area of the sale. It's a secret the competition will not learn until after the auction.
I think this is going to be a very interesting sale. There's going to be a lot of interest on the part of a lot of people.
When oil men like Fred Christian are interested, they're usually interested in a big way. 13 of the country's top 20 corporations are oil companies, with Sun number 17 on the Fortune 500. The industry was born here in western Pennsylvania when the first commercial oil well was drilled a year before Abe Lincoln became president. Oil fever swept the state, and Sun's founder, Joseph Newton Pugh, headed for the drilling fields. Pugh took a gamble and bought not oil, but natural gas, the byproduct most drillers thought worthless. By the turn of the century, Pugh had built his gas company into a $1 million business. But the Sun empire did not really begin until Pugh's nephew, J. Edgar Pugh, journeyed to Texas to buy drilling leases and oil. Pugh risked his young company by sending huge quantities of crude back to Pennsylvania by ship while racing to complete his new refinery. He gambled and won. By the 1920s, yet another Pugh, J. Howard, was running the company, and Sun expanded into the retail gasoline business, the shipping business, and the pipeline business. By the 80s, the empire embraced coal mines as well, and trucking companies, and 8 million acres of oil property in the Southwest. Sun's annual sales reached $15 billion. But that doesn't mean the sun couldn't set. Sun's need for crude means more exploration offshore, where the costs are high and the risks great. Like most oil companies, it tries to spread the risk among several partners who bid together on individual tracts. Jesse Booth, 59, is the link between Sun and its bidding partners. Like Fred Christian, Booth has been with Sun his entire career and knows everybody in the business.
The people that work for a company give the company the personality. We are Sun as far as the offshore goes, you know. You know, it's funny when they talk about these giant oil companies, and they put a cartoon in the paper about some big fat guy with a big cigar up in some big swanky office in New York, you know. That's not the company. The company is the people that work for it, and that's who we think about.
This is Jesse Booth here.
Booth sets up a meeting at which Sun and its bidding partners, Texaco, Union Oil, and Koch Industries, will decide which tracks to bid on and how much to bid, all behind closed doors.
Anything we have, we paid for. We paid with hard U.S. dollars. And I would be stupid to give it away and maybe give up a competitive edge. Well, with this attitude in every company, you can see that if we let you into our bid meeting and you filmed our procedures, though we may not bid together next time, that would give everybody that saw it an insight into how we approach these things.
Mid-April, 2 months before the sale. The last hurdle for Christian and his staff is a meeting with Sun's division president, Richard Fetzner, who is flying in from Sun headquarters in Radnor, Pennsylvania.
If he don't want to use it, we can take it down.
Is he going to talk before I do? He is going to direct any geologic questions to me. And my concern is I don't want to be scrambling to put maps up.
If Fetzner likes what he sees, Fred Christian will have more than $50 million at his disposal.
And this is the team that's put this thing together. We've reviewed the prospects as seen by Union. We've looked at the prospects as seen by Texaco. What we're going to show you here today is our interpretation of the same areas. We'll give you an idea of the number of tracks that we think has some possibility. We have to compete with the entire corporation for funds. And of course, my thinking is the best way to get those funds is through gaining the confidence of the people who allocate.
And I talked to Shell people this morning, and Shell still hasn't got a group together. In fact, it's kind of up in the air about who's going to bid with who. We're pretty sure that Chevron and Phillips, who bid all this money up here.
And the way to gain this confidence is to show them that we know what we're doing within the limits of the science that we work in. We know what we're doing as well as any part of Sun and as well as any part of industry.
We have approximately 4,000 miles of data that we're putting into the interpretation. And before I go any further, I want you to understand we're still working on these maps, refining them. We've essentially completed a rough cut through the Monterey.
And if we're able to convince him of this, and he convinces the people in Radnor and our board that this is an investment opportunity Sun should participate in, then the funds will be made available.
We're looking at development costs in the order of $3 a barrel. Obviously, the number of wells is wide open.
What kind of time to do that in?
First production in about 87.
So that's all in the 5-year plan.
And I think that's about the size of it.
With Fetzner on their side, Christian and Booth begin to relax.
This is, without a doubt, one of the most competitive things that I have ever been involved in. You don't survive in this business being a nice guy. It's tough. The funny thing, those of us who've been in this business all our adult lives have known each other all our adult lives, and we get such a real thrill out of beating each other. It's just a real thrill to take some guy you went to college with 30 years ago and outbid him by a few lousy bucks and see him sitting there with tears running down his face. It's a funny thing. Get out of where things are good.
But the celebration was premature. In May, it becomes clear that the bid partners aren't as excited by the geological reports as Sun is. So Christian's geologists are forced to reevaluate the tracks.
Do you have adequate subsurface control projected into this area to where we know what depth we're looking for?
We have all the wells that are available.
How'd you find out? What do you think we ought to do? Well, I guess we ought to have a meeting with him or something. I'll go tell Fred and see what he wants to do. He's not going to like it, but I'm going to have to tell him anyway.
Hey, come on in. What's the good news?
In any bid group, there are bound to be disagreements.
Texaco and Union are talking about the thing, and Texaco's coming around to Union's idea about it, that from what they know in the eastern end of the channel.
Since Sun doesn't want to bid alone, it may well have to lower its sights.
Well, we'll have to talk to them and see. Next time we get together, we'll all come up with what we think it's worth and go from there.
What do you want me to do now?
Call them and tell them that we'll look at it again and we'll get with them whenever they're ready. Talk about it some more.
Okay, I'll call them right now.
Okay, thank you.
A few weeks later, there's another complication. The state of California sues the Federal Department of the Interior, demanding that 24 tracks be removed from the sale because they're too close to shore or in heavily traveled shipping lanes. A federal judge concurs, and the tracks are removed. Sun loses one of its best prospects. June 10th, the day before the sale. The court decision and the cautiousness of the bid partners have taken their toll. A subdued Fred Christian arrives in Los Angeles.
Not going to be nearly so big as I thought it was. I don't think it is. But I think that industry will participate. I think the tracks that are being offered will be leased. It just won't be the extremely high bids that we've seen around the coast in the Santa Maria Basin. People had a chance to do their work and see that it didn't have the potential they had thought in the beginning, and as they cooled down, they start drawing their horns in.
18 hours before the sale, Jesse Booth and the other members of the bid group drop off 5 sealed bids.
There's no way to guess exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, Bill, how you doing?
Good.
Bill, Tom Heaton.
Bill, Jim Wisney.
You have to be careful with your strategies. You can overdo it as well as underdo it.
Well, we're glad to see you participating. Glad to be here today. There's a few bids here for you. Good.
Each of these envelopes contains one bid and a check for hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. It's a deposit of sorts, 20% of the bid's value.
Well, how does it look? You think it's going to be an interesting sale?
I'll say interesting.
Interesting. That's as much as you're saying. That's right.
9 a.m., the day of the auction. Now that the bids are all in, there's nothing to do but wait and gossip.
The people from other companies are very, very careful that you have no idea of what they're doing, and you also want them to have no idea of what you're doing.
And there are only 15 of that are any good.
And in this state of California, you can't go out on your own. You've got to work together.
Texaco said they're already good for the state. There is considerable excitement. There's sort of a carnival atmosphere.
Good morning. I'm Reed Stone. I'd like to offer you our greetings from the Department of Interior on behalf of Secretary Watt. Considering some of the difficulties that we have encountered and arriving at this point, it looks like we have a successful sale today, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Grant, my deputy. Bill?
This sale will be conducted under the provisions of the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act and amendments, the Submerged Lands Act.
Red tape notwithstanding, the federal government has earned more than $37 billion in offshore leases and royalties.
Act, National Historic Preservation Act, Research and Development.
To win, a bid must not only be higher than the competition's, but also higher than the track's minimum value as determined by the government.
The Freedom of Information Act and the Privacy Act. Also, we trust it's being conducted under the rules and regulations of all the departments. Now, having received and acted upon all these recommendations, laws, rules, regulations, we're prepared to proceed, open, and read the bids. The first bid is a bid of Exxon Corporation 100%. The total amount bid is $5,240,000.
Absolutely a deadpan look. You would think that they were out there to go to Disneyland.
$10,967,500.
The fact that they're exposing their half their corporation doesn't show up at all.
We have two bids on track number 4.
This could be one of the most important leases sold at the auction. It borders Chevron and Phillips' big discovery to the north and Sun's secret discovery to the east. The Sun Group bids $4,500,000. As for Chevron and Phillips, they bid
$4,206,121. The amount per acre is $964.66 per acre.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Sun gets it with a fine bid high enough to win and no higher, with little money wasted or left on the table, as they say here.
That's a good way to start the sale.
Most every human being wants to do a good job.
Yeah.
It's like bird dogs. They hunt birds, but they don't know why. We want to do good, and we want to be told we've done good.
Track 43 has one bid. This is a joint bid of Texaco Inc.
The one bid is a Sun bid, $9 million for a track no one else wants. Millions left on the table.
Track 70 has 4
On track
bids.
number 70, the bid group fell apart, and Sun and Coke were forced to go it alone. Their bid is $6,048,000.
Is a bid of Exxon, 100%. The total amount bid is $2,015,000. The amount per acre, $349.82.
You want to buy half of that, Tom?
It's for sale right now. You want a piece?
Anybody want to buy half of that right quick?
Sun wins again, but its $6 million is 3 times the next highest bid. More money left on the table.
Track 95 has 6 bids.
Golly, 6 bids.
First bid is a joint bid of
When other people see something the same as we see it, then competition becomes far more intensive. We're competitors from top to bottom. We quite often operate together in various joint ventures, but the competition never lets up.
Number 95 is the track that everyone has an eye on. It was being explored at the time of the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill. During the ensuing moratorium on drilling, the lease expired, and now it's on the block again.
is a joint bid of Chevron, 65.908%.
Chevron and Phillips. If you take sale 53 in the Santa Maria Basin, I don't think we were competitors. That was their show.
It's $31,683,591. The amount per acre is $5,000.
Chevron and Phillips' bid is by far the highest of the sale.
The last bid
You don't need to read that one out.
is a joint bid of Texaco Inc., 1/3, Sun Exploration and Production Company, 1/3, and Coke Exploration Company, 1/3. The total amount bid is $9,048,960.
Sun's $9 million bid wasn't even close. Did Sun underbid or did Chevron and Phillips overbid? We won't know for years.
Track 96 has 3 bids. First bid is a joint bid.
This is Sun's last bid on a track relatively close to land and highly productive onshore oil fields. Sun hopes the fields extend out to the ocean floor, which would make this tract as valuable as any in the sale.
Sun Exploration and Production Company 1/3, and Coke Exploration Company 1/3. The total amount bid is $6,632,000. The amount per acre, $1,308.35.
Got another
Say
one.
that, old Fanny, then.
It's like Christmas.
Another winning bid, but the Sun Group's $6.6 million leaves $1.5 million on the table.
Track 219, the last track that we have a bid on, and we have one bid.
So the Sun Group decided to play it relatively safe. It won 4 out of 5 tracks and spent only $26 million. Sun's share was $9 million, less than a fifth of its budget. If Christian and Booth guessed right, the oil should be flowing by 1986 and the profits around 1990. Sun hopes to make $1.30 for every dollar
see
it
you
spends.
again at the next offering that we're able to present from the Pacific OCS region. Thank you very much. This concludes the sale at this time.
As for the other companies, they too left most of their money home. Only 29 tracks were leased for a total of $132 billion, far less than expected. By the time all the geological data was in, the early enthusiasm had faded. In the oil business, uncertainty is always part of the game.
All the strain and all the worry and all the work that's been into it's over. And then there's a letdown. My idea of celebration is to sit down by myself and think about what happened. And on the way home, you get to thinking about the next one.
Soon after the sale, Fred Christian left the Sun Company for a more attractive job as exploration manager of Diamond Shamrock in Houston.
This program was presented by WGBH-TV, which is solely responsible for its content. Enterprise is co-produced with Learning Corporation of America.